Have you ever looked up at the stars and imagined flying through the cosmos to reach some distant planet in a faraway galaxy? Maybe you imagine having a close call with an asteroid or comet, or fear missing your destination point, even winding up at an event horizon with a belly in knots, or stumbling into an alien nest and waking a sleeping nightmare. All the fun stuff. Perhaps it's because my partner and I recently watched The Martian, the movie adapted from Andy Weir's novel, but I've been on a space travel kick recently. Even dusted off my copy of Hawking's A Brief History of Time to remind myself of the awesome science it takes to actually leave Earth's atmosphere and go to another place, even just to see Earth from an alien eye view. As fun as it is to conceptualize, philosophize, and what if oneself through astrophysics, it's important to know what the scientific and literary rules are for space travel so you can either use them to your story's advantage and please your readers with your knowledge, or disregard them intentionally in pursuit of imaginative creative expression. So let's talk about travel. In the aforementioned book, A Brief History of Time, Hawking wrote, "We must accept that time is not completely separate from and independent of space, but is combined with it to form an object called spacetime. Traveling through space means traveling through time. You simply cannot have one without the other." As Hawking said only a few pages later in the book, when we look at the universe, we are seeing it as it was in the past. It is with this acknowledgement in mind that I'm choosing to refer to space-time travel in this video. They are one and the same. Whether the space-time travel is a focal point of your story or whether it's not but background explanation for certain plot events, if a character must travel through space-time, there must be a specific reason for such travel. The travel must be important to the larger story to avoid poking out like a crooked finger and jabbing your reader in their believability zone. There are several reasons why you may choose to use space-time travel in your story: to explore rifts or challenges in non continuous space time, to show a developing society, perhaps one several millennia in the past or future, to leverage a new or radically different landscape, something you can't find on planet Earth, to conceptualize a thoroughly developed alien society to explore differences between it and Earth societies, or to spotlight a faraway frontier where there's no help available or available quickly and your characters are on their own. Some of these reasons work well for literary works. Novels like Audrey Niffenegger's The Time Traveler's Wife and Octavia Butler's Kindred come to mind, where the space time travel is prominent, but the scientific basis of the travel is not the focal point of the story. Then there are stories in which the science behind the space time travel is focal to the larger story, like H.G. Wells' The Time Machine or Cecil Lewis' The Three Body Problem. No matter which kind of space time travel you're writing, know why and how traveling is important to your characters, your world, your plot, and your overall arc, as well as your story message. Without some level of import, the space time travel may come off as unnecessary, superfluous, even distracting from the larger work. Using space time travel in your story means keeping a few rules in mind so readers can suspend their disbelief and immerse themselves in your story. Here is some general things to keep in mind. For alien centric stories without space time travel, there can be no humans. Because humans come from planet Earth, and because, according to photos captured by Voyager 2, aliens must be in another star system, without using some kind of space time travel, you will not be able to use any human experiential processing to inform your reader of the differences between alien life and human life. In fact, by not using space time travel in a story about aliens, there are some details about those aliens or their world you may not be able to provide to your reader without, as you know, Bob, interjectory disruptions. For example, if all your aliens have 7 eyeballs, then having 7 eyeballs would be considered normal. Your alien characters would not have reason to talk about the number of eyeballs they have unless there's an express reason for calling attention to those eyes. Think about what you want your reader to know about the aliens and how you will deliver that information without disrupting the reading flow. This analysis may help you determine whether human comparison would be helpful or even necessary for reader understanding. Space time is infinite but has no boundary. If you read Nietzsche's Doctrine of Eternal Recurrence or watched season 1 of True Detective, you may be familiar with the saying, time is a flat circle. In astrophysics and space time travel, you can almost take this literally. Hawking shared, when one combines general relativity with the uncertainty principle of quantum mechanics, it is possible for space-time to be finite without any edges or boundaries. Flat circle indeed. Because the night sky is dark, we know the universe is finite, which is Olber's paradox. This doesn't mean, though, that we have to accept a flat universe the way some folks long ago, and still a few today, accept a flat Earth. While the universe itself is finite, it doesn't need to have edges or boundaries due to the curvature of space-time and the possibility of the multiverse theory involving the cosmic foam. To wit, your spaceship need not bump into an invisible barrier or some other end of the universe Truman Show-esque explanation for the far reaches. If your story does include some kind of end of the universe, think about why there needs to be an end and how to handle space-time if such an end or boundary exists. Because, given the laws of gravity and the centripetal force at play, the modern spaceship would likely travel along such a flat circle and would never encounter something as mundane as a limit, especially since we know the universe is still expanding. Readers may need to know what is happening to the ship or to space-time to keep invested if they encounter a limit. If your vessel moves at the speed of light, it must become light energy, which means space-time travel is then not only possible, but available. You heard me correctly. If any ship or vessel traveling through space-time reaches the speed of light, or light speed, that vessel must become, at least temporarily, light itself, pure energy. Hawking wrote that any normal object is forever confined by relativity to move at speeds slower than the speed of light. Only light or other waves that have no intrinsic mass can move at the speed of light. The second your vessel reaches light speed is the same second at which it basically blips out of tangible or observable existence. Now, when writing science fiction, there are some clever ways to handle this in stories, such as a temporary blipping out, which ceases the moment your traveling speed dips below light speed. So think about what happens to your vessel at the moment it reaches light speed so that your readers stay with your travelers as they race toward their destination. Traveling faster than the speed of light, or Trekkian warp speed, is not allowed within physics rules. Sorry to be a bummer, y'all, but no vessel can travel faster than light speed. Hawking wrote, the idea that one could go right round the universe and end up where one started makes good science fiction, but it doesn't have much practical significance because it can be shown that the universe would recollapse to zero before one could get round. You would need to travel faster than light in order to end up where you started before the universe came to an end, and that is not allowed. While Hawking does give a nod to science fiction writers who have skirted this rule, know that skirting this rule should be done with caution, as the terms warp speed and warp drive are most often associated with Star Trek and may cause the more science-minded readers to discredit your story. There are several other physics rules that may be important for your story. Here's a brief series of rules that you should know if your story includes any of these elements. And these are all from Stephen Hawking. The present evidence therefore suggests that the universe will probably expand forever, But all we can really be sure of is that even if the universe is going to recollapse, it won't do so for at least another 10,000 million years. If your story sits at the edge of universal collapse, know that you're writing a story set at least 10,000 million years in the future. And even humans on planet Earth, assuming there still are humans, will be radically different from the friends and neighbors you know today. There could be whole anti-worlds and anti-people made out of anti-particles. However, if you meet your anti-self, don't shake hands. You would both vanish in a great flash of light. I'm not sure I need to say much more about that Hawking quote, except I already can imagine several story premises in which people meet their antiparticle doppelgangers with varying degrees of curiosity, awe, understanding, even rage. And since black holes offer worlds of possibility in themselves, here are a few Hawking sourced rules about black holes and their event horizons to which you should be aware. After gravitational collapse, a black hole must settle down into a state in which it could be rotating but not pulsating. Moreover, its size and shape would depend only on its mass and rate of rotation, and not on the nature of the body that has collapsed to form it. Gravity gets weaker the farther you are from the star, so the gravitational force on our intrepid astronaut's feet would always be greater than the force on his head. This difference in the forces, when approaching the event horizon of a black hole, would stretch our astronaut like spaghetti or tear him apart before the star had contracted to the critical radius at which the event horizon formed. Anything or anyone who falls through the event horizon will soon reach the region of infinite density and the end of time. When planning or revising your space time travel story, consider why travel is important, where your travelers are headed, and the nature of the travel itself. For stories set on generation ships, for example, where the character may neither reach their destination nor even remember the original destination, you may be writing a story driven by place or milieu. So be sure to answer the question posed at the beginning of the story for reader promise fulfillment. And generation ships are but one way to get your readers from point A to point B. Hyperspace is also an option, as is cryopreservation and other methods. But as with any technological advance, if the tech exists for one purpose, it likely can and will be used for other purposes. Generation ships may be lost or hijacked by space pirates. Hyperspace travelers will experience delays of varying lengths from weeks to decades and may miss events. Cryopreservation for space travel would also likely lead to cryopreservation for medical and other interventions, and would likely be used by bad actors for ill gotten gains. So, think about why a bad guy, for example, would want to use your space time travel tech for the worst, and see how many risks you can come up with for your character to handle. And if you're writing a story that has anything at all to do with space time travel, I highly recommend 2 nonfiction books to fill out your understanding of the science and the craft of writing that science. A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, and there's a reason I mentioned Hawking so many times in this video, and the book Writing Fantasy and Science Fiction: How to Create Out of This World Novels and Short Stories by Orson Scott Card, Philip Athens, Jay Lake, and the editors of Writer's Digest. And remember, if you want me to cover a specific topic in an upcoming video, drop a comment and let me know what you're thinking about. I'd love to write it for you and credit you with the suggestion. Happy writing and reading.